Hello everyone, can you see me well from your room, from your living room, from somewhere, cafe maybe? This is Saturday morning, so it must be really early for you, 10:20 a.m. on Saturday, really bright, sunny, fair weather day, and thank you for coming. That's my point. Thank you for coming to listen to my talk. I'm An-Suk Jang, psychology professor at the University of Utah Asia campus. I'm in charge of the whole program. So the things that I'm going to cover today is a general introduction about psychology field so that you can get a sense of what you're going to be experiencing at University of Utah Asia campus. At the same time, like my title says, lots of us have a misunderstanding about what psychologists do. For example, I can just read your mind, what Sarah or Hyobin are thinking. At the moment, maybe they are thinking of their breakfast, late breakfast or lunch coming up. That we don't do actually. But what we do is we collect the data from people, then we make some inferences about people's understanding about their environment, about their behavior, about people's behavior. So that's what we do. And when we do such things, we have several different divisions in terms of field of study. So I'm going to go through some of major fields of study in psychology today with you. But to begin with, I'm going to start this monitor or clicking is not working. At some point, it's working. So when we look at this whole world map, where are we? So somewhere here, I believe, right? And then the University of Utah is here. What does it mean to experience or to be educated by University of Utah system in South Korea? To understand that part, I want to go over some of my own experience. I don't know how many of you can recognize this place.
Is it in South Korea?
It's in South Korea, thank you. More specifically, can you guess? So it's somewhere with the seashore. It's Haeundae, actually. I had a hard time getting this picture with not many people in Haeundae. So that's my hometown. I was born and raised in Haeundae, in Busan. And then I moved to Seoul for college. That was really different. Seoul was very different. The foods they eat here were very different from Haeundae persons eat. And the way they talk, the accent, of course, and the manner was different. All this cultural part was different. And when I was starting to feeling like, oh yeah, I feel now comfortable in Seoul, then I moved to somewhere else, which is Chicago. This is Chicago in the Midwest, Illinois, state of Illinois, of USA. I spent my adult 10 years here. So I learned a lot of adult culture meaning as a grown-up, you are faced with something different from when you were in high school or junior high school or in college. So I learned a lot of different cultural part in Chicago. And then I came back to Korea, to my country, to be with my family and to do something in my country. That's why I ended up here. But particularly, University of Utah Asia campus provides the American education system in Korea, which was perfect setting for me. So I'm here. What I'm going to tell you from now on is because we want to understand people. Yes, as a psychologist, we want to understand people. But the people are not the individuals in a vacuum. That's why I went through this Haeundae, Chicago, Songdo thing. The person that you want to understand, even if it's yourself, are located, situated, surrounded by your family members, your friends, colleagues, and all those are located in a local community, which has its own culture in many different aspects. And yes, it is in Korean culture, American culture, any Turkish culture that you are in, you might be interested in or you are accustomed to. All these cultures are shaping one by one how you believe about yourself, about your friends, about your family, everything. So that's what we call as ecological understanding of individuals or human behaviors. That's what we do. Basically, this is the whole assumption in whatever you do in whatever fields in psychology, okay? So let me ask you, if you're alone in your room, living room with your family, in whichever situation you are now at, think about some issues, some problems, some difficulties, some hardships that you or your friends are experiencing nowadays, right? It might be academic stress that you want to perform well, but not necessarily your efforts seem to be pay off. Or you want to be an artist, but then your parents pressure you saying, how can you make money to live on by being an artist, right? So become a doctor, become a dentist, become a psychologist, something like that. They are pressuring you. That could be your thing at the moment, or boyfriend, girlfriend, the relationship issue, your friend's issue, bullying issue, when you are picked on by someone else or by a group of people, what can you do, right? You are victimized by some bullies, then what can you do? Then, as a psychologist, what we study is what can we do as a psychologist, or as a field of scientific study, what psychology can do about people's issues, their experiences, and their lives. That's our fundamental question, right? Without that, we don't have to collect data, we don't have to do the science at all. So this, keeping in mind, we are doing different things depending on specific fields of study that you are in. So we're going to go over one by one really quickly meaning in each division, the people who can identify themselves as cognitive psychologists, neuropsychologists, they have been spending at least 10 years, 30 years, 50 years in that field, and then they identify themselves as developmental psychologists, clinical psychologists. But we're going to cover like 2 minutes for each division. So that's what I'm saying briefly, really oversimplifying summary. We're going to see one by one. Here, you are seeing this slide. Cognition field, cognitive psychology field is about how we process things in our mind, right? When you see something, when you smell something, when you hear something. So here, when you see this slide, could you read out loud the letters from red,
blue, orange, purple, orange, blue, green, red, blue, purple, green, red, orange, blue, red, green, purple, orange.
Good. Did you do it? Awesome. Then could you read the color of each letter from red? Start.
Red, blue, orange, purple, orange, blue, green, red, green, red.
Yes, awesome. So here, your representative students are reading it out loud. It's supposed to be taking the same time when you read aloud the letters versus the colors, because as you can see, red is colored in red. So it's consistent. But if I show you this slide and ask you to read the color of it, could you start by saying?
Green, yellow, white, pink, orange, blue, red, yellow, green.
Awesome, done. So these are the wonderful best students from any school that you can pick, actually from my school now, but they took longer time to read out the color of these letters, because it's inconsistent, because your attention is shifted, has to be shifted toward blocking. Inhibition, we call it, blocking or stopping you from reading this letter, because that's more automatic. but intentionally you have to read out the color of it. That's called the Stroop test, which is classical test in cognitive field, because we want to see what type of attention is automatically given to which type of stimulus. That's what we do in cognitive psychology. Sometimes we do see this clip we're going to share. Follow the instruction from this clip.
So you have to share that.
So I do stop sharing and then share something else.
Yeah, that's right.
Here we go. So when I screen share, I do this.
There you go.
Okay. So from here, we are going to start. Oops, no, here. No, not there, here.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count?
Did you count?
The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
Did you?
This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris and is copyrighted.
Ideally speaking, this is called attention blindness. Blind meaning when you pay attention to something, then you become blind to something else, like gorilla, right? Because you wanted to count the ball. And change blindness, if something is changed underneath somewhere while you are paying attention to something else, you are blind to this change type, change pattern. That's happening with our attention. Attention, very selective, because our mental energy is limited. Although, yes, a lot of geniuses are proving that we have unlimited capacity almost, but the mental energy that we can use at the moment is not that unlimited. It is limited. So you want to distribute it very smartly, right? That's selective attention. Sometimes, this clicking, oh, right. Sometimes we want to know what our brain does really specifically with the chemicals, with the neural connections. So if I show you this and ask you to copy down what you see here in the monitor, that's a regular wall clock. If I'm with you offline in person, then I would look around and see what you have drawn. But let's skip that part. Promise that you are going to do it at home later. Then sometimes, some folks, you are going to see these type of copying from some folks. Do you see some patterns here? Someone is ignoring left part. Someone is ignoring its circle, right? Ignoring, not intentionally at all. Depending on which area of your brain is damaged or injured for whatever reasons, then that's a symptom. You are going to not be able to see certain aspect of the whole clock. That's what they do in neuropsychology. How do we know? When we have different stimuli, these are what you can see from a patient who have certain type of syndromes, depending on where in your brain is intact versus not intact, meaning damaged, or some type of disorders, illness, something is going on in your brain. That's neuropsychology. In neuropsychology, you might focus on clinical neuropsychology or cognitive neuropsychology. These that I show you are more cognitive neuropsychology field, but if you apply it to, for example, dementia, for example, Parkinson, for example, autism, when you deal with these behaviors of people who have certain condition, that's clinical neuropsychology, which is very promising field in psychology as well. Another field is social psychology. What's social, by the way? When do you say this word, social?
Communication.
Good. Communication, meaning you are with someone else, right? Like in this case, when you're surrounded by people, someone else, then being alone, you say something different. That's what humans do. It's not your fault. We are programmed to be a little bit different when we judge something surrounded by people. For example, in this case, although you are seeing 7 participants seated, right, and 1 person as a researcher or administrator of the whole experiment, so you are seeing 7 persons there, but actually only 1 person is the subject, the real participant who doesn't know what's going on. The other 6 are confederates, we call, so they are basically assistants to the experimenter, so they know what to do. They have their own scenarios, script to follow. What it was the participant, let's say I myself, I was shown these 2 pictures. One line with 3, 1 card with 1 line, and 1 card, the other card with 3 lines. And I'm asked to say, oh, which one on the second card look the same length as the first card? And if you can tell me your answer, what is it? Thank you. So I'm told it's a vision test. So vision test, right? My eyesight. Then I believe it's a C. It's rather obvious. It's a C in my mind. But remember, the other 6 are all research assistants. So everyone says, oh, it's definitely B. Definitely B, 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 B. So 6 persons in front of you are saying B, then you are pressured to say B as well, although C seems to be really obvious to your mind. The percentage, do you think you are going to say C for sure? Or B, not so sure? Actually, the data says 30-something%, 30-something meaning because it varies depending on the setting, specific study setting. So 30-something persons out of 100 are saying, it's B. While the obvious answer is a C. And you know it's a C, but when you say it out loud, it's B, right? That is conformity. You are pressured without saying anything. It's implicit pressure that you feel, you perceive in a group setting. That's one of the classical studies in social psychology. It didn't end like that. It had a second round, which was out of 6 persons, only 5 say B, and the other 1 person says A. I mean, A is not correct answer either. But when you have this person, this different person, who says something different from the majority, then what do you believe is the chance that you say the correct answer C? No, no, to conform to the B. Meaning, your chances of saying C is going to be larger or higher in this case when you know there's someone else who says something different. It doesn't have to be the correct answer, but something different provides you the setting that you can say something that you believe, right? That's the beauty of diversity. When you see someone who is very different from you, you say, oh, he's weird, she's awkward, we don't like them, and you stay away from them. That can happen, that is happening in everywhere. But what I want to tell you as a psychologist view, as a social psychologist perspective, having someone who is very different is going to contribute to your own well-being, because it's contributing to the whole context. The context is going to be more welcoming, more respecting of differences, more accepting, which is very good for everyone, not only for that person, but also for everyone. So that's something to remember as well. Developmental psychologists, maybe lots of you are interested in this field because it has a variety of topics. Why? Because it covers the whole lifespan, from the uterus even to the death. So it's the whole lifespan, whole lifetime of any human beings. So for example, if I show you these 3 mountains, how many mountains do you see? 3, yes, thank you. If you are here somewhere, then you can see 3 mountains, right? And if you are somewhere here, can you tell how many mountains are you going to see?
Yes.
Only 2, right? Because this green one is covered, hidden behind this gray one. This answer that you are saying, oh yeah, 2 mountains if you are here, are possible only after a certain level of developmental stage. Because if you ask your baby sister, your baby cousin, Lily, for example, if she's only 2 years old, when she's here, and when her mom is here, and I ask, how many mountains do you see, Lily? Lily is going to say 2, right? But if I ask her, Lily, how many mountains your mom are seeing, she doesn't say 3, although she have looked around already. So she knows there are 3 mountains, and from this perspective, you can see 3, but she doesn't get it. When she sees something as 2 mountains at 2 years old, then she's going to reply, oh, my mom is going to see 2. Meaning, her whole world is within her own perspective. She cannot take multiple different perspectives yet. That's 2 years old. But somewhere 3 or somewhere less than 3 or more than 3, depending on the individual differences, of course, then you are going to understand, from Sloan's perspective, from Sarah's perspective, something looks different. You came to understand that. That's developmental side when you focus on these young folks. When you think about this whole lifetime, yes, definitely. Elderly, because the whole population is fastly aging at the moment in the whole world, right? So we want to study these elderly folks, how they accept this life-changing, how they process the whole past life, and then accept the upcoming death, right? Prepare for the death and prepare for the after death. After they die, then what their loved ones are going through. They themselves, elderly themselves, can be a part of this whole decision, right? Not only that, healthy in this picture, everyone looks perfectly fine, healthy, happy, right? But at the same time, you guys know, experiencing this COVID-19, that there are folks who are very marginalized, and elderly folks, when you don't have proper income, when you don't have proper asset, then lots of elderlies, particularly in Korea, do not want to be a burden on their children's shoulders. And our suicide rate in South Korea above 65 is the highest. No other country can beat it, which is very sad. So developmental psychologists Gerontologists, geriatrics, we do work on this topic too. Not only for the healthy aging, great folks, but also those who are less fortunate to have lots of assets, lots of resources too. Because they are the same community members of our country, right? Or our community. Sometimes you want to focus on these folks, adolescents. When you guys are adolescents, and here you have wonderful college students who are also adolescents, a little bit older than yourselves, particularly in Korea, and nowadays, very general, very universally, people tend to focus on physical appearance too much. This young lady here, she's actually like this, but when she looks at the mirror, she believes she's this overweight. What is this? That's called the eating disorder. Eating disorder has different type of syndromes, and this one is anorexia, resisting to it at all, because any bit of food into your system you believe is going to gain a lot of weight, that's going to lose your self-esteem, lose your social standing, lose your relationship and everything. Because everything that you have are up to how you look physically, they believe. That's an important population we work on. Clinical is what many of you are picturing in your mind when you think about reading your mind. So clinical psychologists work with people with pathology. Pathology, some type of serious illness that's preventing you, stopping you from functioning well. Functioning meaning as a high school student, functioning well is going to school, getting out of bed in the morning and going to school and oh no, during the pandemic, you are staying at home, getting out of bed and listening to your online instruction and study. That's your functioning. If your depression, if your some anxiety makes you not be able to do that, that's a functioning trouble. And maybe some of us need help. That's when these clinical psychologists intervene. How do they intervene? How do they decide how to intervene? By testing you. Lots of testing are there. We never decide, diagnose, or treat people by one testing. It's going to be the whole battery of lots of different diverse types of testing, including this. So when you see this type of ambiguous picture, ambiguous meaning, I ask you to describe this painting to me. Then I give you some minutes and you tell me your story. Think about it later because we don't have lots of time. So Sarah's story, Hyobin's story, Sahara's story are going to be very different from each other because we believe, clinical psychologists believe, you are going to project what you have in your mind on this ambiguous picture. Ambiguous picture, painting, or some ink blots, some type of stimuli that do not necessarily have their own meaning, right? But you create your own story by projecting what you have in mind. That's what we believe. That, as well as all types of different testing, we do. And there's community psychology. Community psychology, like I said, in terms of ecological understanding of human behavior, we want to understand one person, let's say a patient. Let's say this person has a cancer. You're diagnosed with cancer. Cancer is very prevalent, so that's my example. Then how you talk to your friends, your colleagues, your family members, what type of support you need from your family members. Do you need someone to talk to? Definitely. Do you need someone to go to the clinic together because it's hard for you to walk even? That's really, really critical for your well-being, right? It's not only you dealing with cancer. It's going to be someone else together to support you. That's community psychology. in local community again, because the medical services are very different from local community to local community. And it is happening in, let's say I'm studying the whole thing in Korea, then it's happening in the territory of Korean culture. So with the health policy, labor law, or even cultural assumptions about what people do when you are in your 40s, when you are in 50s, when you are a woman versus men. All these assumptions, expectations are going to affect how you deal with your cancer, actually. That's what we study in community psychology, for example. All of these, we do more than anything as a science. Science meaning you don't argue for anything that you believe without evidence. Evidence, the data. So do we read your mind like a psychs do or like magicians do? No. We do read your mind as long as you tell us what others are going on, then we can read your mind. And those things that you can tell us about what others are going on, that's the evidence, that's the data that we collect, that we survey, that we experiment. All those are scientific measures that we employ to talk about, to infer about you guys. That's what we do as a scientist. For example, so I studied these folks who have cancer. They feel anxious about, is it going to come back? What do I do? Am I going to die soon? So that's patient's anxiety. Of course, when you have some social support, meaning you have lots of friends or family members support, then you don't feel as anxious as when you don't have all this. That's this line, right? The slope is negative, meaning it's negative relationship. When you have lots of social support, your anxiety goes down. What I found was an interaction with income, meaning this particular yellow line is only for those who have high income. Meaning, when you have less money, the lines were steeper. Meaning, the effect of having social support was much larger for those who don't have lots of monetary resources. Does that make sense? That's interaction between social support and income. So that's what, yes, that's what I found from a study from Samsung Medical Center, actually a gastric cancer center. So what? That's another important part of what psychologists do, reading your mind, and then what? Yes, we do measure things scientifically, and then we want to apply it in real life. That's called implications in real life, that have some impacts in your real life. Without it, what's the good of it, right? Spending lots of millions of dollars in doing the research. No good of it in pandemic. So in pandemic situation, what can we do? As a community psychologist, as a cognitive psychologist, as a health psychologist, social psychologist, there are a lot of millions of possibilities that we can intervene. So that's what we are working on at the moment. However, we do have lots of interdisciplinary possibilities as well. Nowadays, everything combining several different discipline areas are very, very encouraged and promoted, because that gives us more deeper insight about humans. For example, medical psychology or behavioral medicine. So like cancer patients and their family caregivers, their mental health, we studied in that field. Psychology and law, you guys are interested in forensic, right? Criminal, so profiling, that's here, or legal psychology as well. Psychology and business, definitely. Business are, the area of business are going to use all these products from social psychology, from cognitive psychology, applying it in the business setting. That's what we do with the business and psychology, and marketing and PR and public relations. Definitely, you have to apply all these understandings about human mechanisms in your mind. so that we can promote their spending more. That's what marketing does, right? Or psychology of creativity, like artists, geniuses. Ooh, how can we promote, how can we encourage people to become more creative thinkers, right? That's psychology too. Sometimes artificial, not sometimes. In clinical psychology, artificial intelligence, AI, is a huge topic with everything going digital. From now on, right, it's in transition. So that's a huge field in psychology too. Psychology and public policy, definitely. So you guys might know this person, Lee Soo-jung, Dr. Lee in Gyeonggi University. She's one of the first founders of law psychology in Korea. And she's now one of the most influential women leaders in the world by BBC, right? So this person not only gives type of PhDs in psychology, if you recognize this person, she's a cellist, but she studied psychology, Hanna Jang. Now she's a conductor in Gyeonggi-do, Suwon, I believe. And she's an awesome cellist and musician, but she studied psychology. And this lady that I actually really hate because she's good at everything. So she's Natalie Portman, and she was an actor, dancer. She is an actor still, and also she's an environmentalist. She's an activist. She's a mother. She does everything very good. She studied psychology, although it was at Harvard. Here, Go Ah-sung, right, actress in Korea. She studied psychology in Seonggyungwan. Why am I? Yeah. I hope to see some folks who studied psychology from UAC comes out in this picture. And this guy, Jerry Bruckheimer, he's a producer of CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, and a lot of different best-selling TV shows. He's a producer and he studied psychology, meaning you don't have to be a PhD in psychology to become a better professional in your field later, but it's going to give you great understanding about how people act, how people behave, how people think about themselves, about people, about the world, so that you can mix and employ all those understandings in your application, in your field. That's totally possible. So that's what we do in psychology, to read your mind. So if you are interested in joining in our journey, come to UAC. That's going to be my talk. If you have any specific questions about school, about psychology, about UAC psychology, then come talk to me or email me. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Bye.